coming down today and spending some time with us around Copilot M365 and Copilot Studio. Just a quick round of introductions as to who we are and where we've come from. So I'm Alex. I look after the Microsoft portfolio for PTech within the software licensing team. Craig here is a solution architect who sits under Ingram Micro, but we partner really closely with to bring you guys the events. But also if you're a licensing customer of ours, there's a whole bunch of value add around consultancy with Craig. Liam at the back there is our modern workplace specialist. So he is the master of licensing audits around compliance, but also structures. How can we make your licensing optimized, reduce the costs, and bring you more features with what's available? Obviously, there's multiple ways to do licensing, many different add-ons you can do to base licenses. We live and breathe this every day, so it's really, let us help you on that journey. And then Chat, your account manager down here in Dunedin, who looks after you for everything M365, hardware, other software licenses, and everything like that. So I'll jump back in at the end to kind of wrap up the session. There's a few familiar faces in the room who are already licensing with us, so thank you and welcome back. And to everyone who I haven't seen before, you'll probably receive an email from me asking for a meeting in the coming days to try license with us moving forward. So please use this session as an interactive piece. Interrupt Craig when you need, ask questions. We want this to be valuable to you, so don't sit there with a burning question and don't ask. And if you need anything more after this, flick me an email and we can set up a one-on-one session to kind of dive deeper into what we've covered today and how can we bring that extra value to you. So today's session will probably run for around an hour, then we'll do Q&A at the end, but again, if we kind of do the Q&A throughout, it kind of makes more sense because it's probably relevant to what's on the screen. And then we've got some lunch afterwards next door in the restaurant where we can have a catch up on that. Cool. I'll pass it over to Craig.
Thank you, Alex. Good morning, everyone. And just to echo Alex, thank you so much for taking your time. It wouldn't be a Wednesday if we didn't speak about AI and agents, as everyone does these days. So it's obviously a hot topic, and it's something that, unfortunately, in my opinion, the naming and the branding that Microsoft has with Copilot was a little bit of a miss. It's certainly a brand that they've pushed, and it's a brand that's sitting all over your desktops now, and which Copilot do I have, which Copilot can I use, which one do I use when, and I'm hoping after today's session we'll have a bit of a better understanding of where we can use which type of agents for our workplace within our environments. So just to kick it off, basically under the Copilot umbrella, we have 3 agent types. So we have the embedded pieces. These are the likes of Microsoft 365 Copilot. So this is a licensed per user product, and basically the easiest one to get started with because it has knowledge by default. So what I mean by that is if I license myself today, I tick that box that Microsoft 365 Copilot license as part of my user profile. It will have access to all of my Exchange emails, all of my OneDrive, all of the SharePoint files that I have access to. And with all of these agents, the golden key for them is knowledge. So the knowledge we add to these is what these agents are going to utilize for us. So out of the box, that is a SaaS product that Microsoft offers, and we turn that on and it gets that knowledge by default. We can't control that. So if we have any concerns around we're unsure of a specific user having access to a SharePoint folder, perhaps they shouldn't have, then that would be something that we really want to iron out first before turning something like Microsoft 365 Copilot on, because it makes the search function so much richer and so much easier to find information that we did not know that we had access to. So that knowledge by default is something we want to manage before adopting this. The second one in the middle is really something that I personally don't use a lot, but it sits in the realm of a vendor agent. So think about Dropbox, think about Asana, think about Monday.com. They all have their own agents within their ecosystems. And what they've done is they've built out a agent or Copilot agent for their product itself. So I'll show you exactly where we find these, but basically this is going to be linking to that service that you use. Now, the problem that I have personally with this is that we start creating silos for each of these agents. So when I look at an environment and we want to use agents within our environment, I want to try and overlay that agent across multiple data sources. I don't want to try and create an agent for Monday.com, an agent for my Dropbox, an agent for my ERP system, because then we've got to use different agents and different orchestrators to be able to access that data. So when we're thinking about this, we really want to think about, are we building this for the entire organization? If we are, what knowledge sources are we going to plug into this agent, and what is the use case for this? If we're not going to build it for the entire company, are we going to be utilizing it only in the Microsoft ecosystem, or should we extend those data sources out to other data sources? So the one in the middle here, I personally not a fan of because of that siloed approach, and it just becomes something quite cumbersome to manage, both from an IT perspective as well as the users themselves getting a bit confused as to which agent to use when. And then on the far right, or this far right here, we have custom agents. Now, custom agents are built out of a product called Microsoft Copilot Studio. And in my opinion, this is probably one of the best return on investments a company can get from the Microsoft platform. Because we license this on a tenant level, there is no licensing required on a per user basis. Now, the good use case for a custom agent would be something like building one agent for the entire organization to use. So an example would be, all right, we've got a knowledge base sitting in our SharePoint that's got all the policies, all the HR policies, all the leave policies, all the smoking policies, whatever it may be, sitting there. And when people come to the company, they can go and review those policies. How often would someone actually go and review those policies? Probably not, because they're quite cumbersome to run through. So what we can do is we can build an agent that overlays all of that knowledge, and the user can simply ask questions. Oh, what does the leave policy look like? Where can I put in my leave? What does the smoking policy look like? And based on that custom agent, we build one agent, and all the users within the organization can utilize it. So a really good way to build an agent without having to license on a per user basis, and it's got a really good price point as well. And I'm sure Alex will give you guys a deal there as well, so just have a chat to her. But yeah, embedded, solution accelerators, and then custom agents. And I'm going to touch on all of them in a second. So before I jump in, I'm going to jump into the portal just to show you where each of these are. So basically, let me just take this off. So basically, this is the m365.cloud.microsoft chat window. So if you have the Microsoft 365 Copilot license, that one on the embedded side, you would basically see Copilot in the likes of Word, Excel, PowerPoint, etc. So what happens here is that is the embedded part. That is the part that where we speak about having the Copilot for Microsoft 365 sitting in our apps. So you would see something like that. You would also see what would you like to create today. So the big driver around that embedded part is creating things. So creating a document for you, reviewing a document for you, and the agent doing that on your behalf. So if a user not going to be utilizing that aspect of that tool, then perhaps another agent type would be better for them. If they're not going to be creating PowerPoint presentations, if they're not going to be creating Word documents, statement of work documents, that type of stuff, then we might lean towards a custom agent to get those agent builds out. What we then look at is the solution accelerators. So if you have a look at all agents, this is where those solution accelerators are sitting in. So if you have a look at all of these, Monday.com, Asana, Jira Cloud, etc., these are all agents that have been built by the vendors themselves. So as an IT manager, you have the capability to block these so that users don't come in and start adding 100 different agents and linking their own data, etc. So you can have a look at deciding to rather remove these and not allow these within the organization because you are building one for the entire organization. So this is what we refer to as the solution accelerators. And then in Copilot Studio, this is the Copilot Studio dashboard, and this is where we can create those custom agents for the entire organization. This is the one that doesn't have to be licensed on a per user basis. We can create workflows, we can create agents, and this is fairly new. We can now create a computer using an agent. Now what this does is this will basically follow your mouse clicks. So if you have a very legacy process that you're running, let's say you're copying data from one Excel cells to another Excel, and someone's actually manually doing that, we can create an agent now that spins up a VM and copies exactly what you do, click by click, and it'll do it for you on your behalf on a scheduled basis, or we can trigger it from a chat itself, okay? It works really well, but I will tell you that it runs in the background, and it has to boot up a VM first, and it will do all of the stuff, and then it will shut it down. So there's quite a delay in that. So if you need rapid responses to that process, then this is not going to be the right fit for you. But if this is something that can run 24/7 in the background, it certainly could be a fit for you guys to have a look at. And like I said, it runs anything Windows 10, Windows 11, so any legacy stuff that you have that you're doing manually, you can have a look at creating an agent using the computer use. Cool. Any questions on those types before I move on? Does it make sense? So from a what to use, when to use type of thing, like I said, the declarative or the embedded agents, the ones that are licensed on a per user basis, they generally used for knowledge, for retrieving knowledge. That's generally what we use them for. We create agents around those and we add knowledge, and that helps us get information through. We also have only the Microsoft 365 channel for that. So basically what that means is in that chat.microsoft 365 that I just showed you, that's the only orchestrator we can use for that. So what that means is that every single user would only be able to utilize that window. Whereas if we look at a custom Copilot, we can publish that to multiple orchestrators. What that means is I can put that agent on a website. I can put that agent in SharePoint. I can put that agent in a Teams channel. And we've got multiple ways of the users to be able to access that. So it's something that's really important for around how do we want our users to use this agent we're creating. Does it sit in the Microsoft ecosystem only? Perfect. But what if we're creating an agent that is public facing? So we might have a lot of data that our public goes to our websites and there's 10,000 PDFs that they're searching right now, then opening each PDF and reviewing that document. We might want to put an agent over that knowledge and let the public use the agent rather than going to search for the different PDFs within the inventory. That way we publish the agent to the website, and then the users, the public, can utilize the agent rather than searching the inventory manually. And that would be something like a custom Copilot, because we have those multiple channels that we can publish them to. So the spectrum of the agents is really, generally speaking, and what I've seen in the last 3 years is majority of the companies start with the retrieval piece. Because it's an easy way to get the use case going, to basically play with the technology, they generally do that whole knowledge base example that I showed around putting knowledge into it, but purely from an asking a questions basis. What's the difference between our income and expenditure for the last 2 months, and bring it out, that type of stuff. Where it gets really, really cool is where we start moving into the tasks and the autonomous piece. So we could take an agent with all the knowledge and ask it questions, but based on the answers that we get, we can then trigger tasks for that. So an example could be, I'm going to connect my agent as a phase 1 to my stock management system. And I'm going to ask it, how much stock of backpacks do we have? It's going to come back and say, you've got 20 pieces of the backpack in stock. I'm going to say, okay, well, that's too low. Can you please order more? That triggers the task piece. And the task piece then moves into creating the purchase order, putting that purchase order in the right system, and then moving that off to a order, whatever the order process looks like. all by just natural language, speaking to it, asking it to do so. Where we move to a step further is that instead of me retrieving and asking it what stock levels of the backpack I have, we now get it to be autonomous. So we say every 10 minutes, check for stock levels. And then we set a limit or a threshold with regards to how much quantity. So let's say it'll say, oh, I'm checking. Oh, you got less than 20. I know that that's the threshold. Let me trigger the task. Let me trigger the PO, and it automatically goes through. So we don't have to manually check these stock levels anymore. It'll do it on our behalf. And that's how we move from a retrieval piece all the way through tasking into more the dynamic autonomous side of things. So the embedded side, Microsoft 365 Copilots, retrieval. That's what it's going to do. It's going to do a little bit of actions for us, and I'll show you that in a second. But if you're looking for tasking and looking for autonomous, we really want to focus on those custom agents using Copilot Studio to get that moving. So just some high-level architectures here. Any declarative or embedded agent, there's a single orchestrator that is Microsoft's Copilot window. That's the only place that the users can actually interact with it. It's got knowledge and it's got a little bit of skills, like I said. And from a models perspective, so within this whole AI world, we've got various models. We've got, I'm sure you guys have heard of GPT models. We've got Anthropic models. We've got Geminis. And all of these models have got strengths and weaknesses. So GPT model, for example, really good general usage. But if you want to do something specific, it's not going to do a great job around it. If you wanted to put an image in and ask it to please measure the dimensions of it, it's going to do a best effort. There's going to be models that can do a much better job at it. All right, so when we're talking about these embedded agents, they're generally utilizing the GPT general purpose models for all of that. When we move to a custom one, this is where we can have various orchestrators, like I said, the public website, Microsoft if you wanted to, SharePoint if you wanted to. We decide on what knowledge to add. So a custom agent by default has zero knowledge. We add it iteratively, all right? We can add the skills and that autonomous piece that I spoke about. And where the power really comes in is where we can add these fine-tuned models. So because these custom agents have access to what is known as Microsoft Foundry, and Microsoft Foundry has all or majority of the mainstream large language models in there. All right, so they've got the llamas, they've got the Geminis, the Groks. So where you want an agent to do a specific task for you, we can actually expand it into a different large language model, not just depend on the GPT model. Okay, so when you're sitting in a whiteboard and you guys are saying, well, our use case is X, Y, and Z, one of the big questions to ask yourself is the GPT model enough? If it's not, we're always going to lean towards that custom because we can break out into various models for that. Okay. So just a side-by-side comparison here, and I will share all these slides with you guys that you can have a look. But basically, declarative, Microsoft 365 focused, custom is more complex, designed for individuals, pretty much more designed for individual or group. Like I said, we can only access it within the Microsoft 365 orchestrator on that one. Here we can access it anywhere, and various channels, engine hosting. This one's hosted in Microsoft only. Here we can host it in multiple places. And the big difference here is that also because of that software as a service approach for the Microsoft 365 and those embedded declarative agents piece, the compliance and security standards that your environment has already put in are adhered to. So from a CISO perspective, a security perspective, much easier to manage because it's already there and it will adhere to those. So if you have a purview compliance policy that you can't take data out of the organization, for example, if you go and ask the agent to create a document and then send it off to yourself and say, we can't do this, all right, it'll adhere to that. Whereas the custom ones, we would have to really understand and build those in. What does that security loop look like for us? So from an agent's perspective within the the leadership. So we've got a couple of options here. So you've probably seen the likes of Copilot Chat, and again, various flavors. So if you have a business standard, business basic environment, you're going to get access to Copilot Chat. Now, that is the Microsoft business version of chat. The big difference is that you are not engaging with a public large language model. All right, you are engaging with a large language model that sits within the Microsoft ecosystem. It's generally a mirror of the public one, but there is delays in how that happens. But this chat version really is just a generative AI like a free ChatGPT would be. All right. Now, where it can get more powerful is where we can actually start building our own mini agents within this version. And we've got two ways to do that. If you are a licensed Microsoft 365 Copilot agent or licensed user, you will be able to build these mini custom agents. Or we can attach the entire environment to a pay-as-you-go model. What that means is that instead of licensing every single user on a Microsoft 365 Copilot license to create these little mini agents, now we can allow all the users within the organization to do so, but on a pay-as-you-go basis. So what do these mini agents look like and where do we create them? So if you have a look in the M365 Cloud.Microsoft page, here you'll be able to see a new agent tab. Now, if you are licensed as an M365 Copilot user, you'll have access to this. All right. The kicker here is that the person that you share this with, if you're going to share it, would also need an M365 Copilot license. If you license the entire organization or put it to a pay-as-you-go, then no one needs a Microsoft 365 Copilot license. So if you wanted to enable this within the organizations and you're concerned about the price of licensing everyone within a Microsoft 365 Copilot, then you can just link this to a subscription and it'll be done on a pay-as-you-go basis. What that means is that the users will be able to create these agents, the users will be able to share these agents with each other, and the users will then be able to utilize it. And for every tokens that they put in, it gets charged to a subscription for you. So it really is a pay-as-you-go basis. So you might be asking, like, well, what is the point of these agents? So think of these agents, as, like I said, as mini agents. You've got a couple of templates you can utilize. You give it a name, you give it the instructions. So I've created a couple of these where we were responding to RFP bids. So we had a whole bunch of requirements come in from a company, and we created an agent, brought in all of those requirements, all of those documentations from a request for proposal perspective, and then we shared it with the team that was actually going to build out the response for it. And you basically configure it saying you are an RFP agent, you are professional, you write in a very professional manner, and then we add what knowledge we want. So you can link it to SharePoint, you can link it to Teams channels, public websites, etc. So basically over here, I would just upload all of those documents that we got from the company that's asking us to bid on the response. And you can set specific sources, reference public information, etc. And then you can also ask it to analyze specific documents. So if they provided us with, 3-year financial data, we can upload that Excel into that and it will use that to also analyze it. And then we can put some suggested prompts in. We build this out and then we are able to share it with the rest of the organization. So whoever the core team is, let's say it's 10 of your members, your team members, we share that and everyone has that agent sitting in their Teams channel and they can chat with it and utilize it for getting that information. It's not going to create a Word document for you, all right? It's going to give you that information. If you are a Microsoft 365 Copilot agent, license, then you'd be able to use the create from this data. But this is really going to be a retrieval piece for you to ask your questions. You could basically build the document out, and then what we did prior to or after creating the response, we put the response in and we said, okay, now tell me how good my response is based on the requirements, and it gave us the gaps. Okay, you've missed this and this and this in the response. They are mandatory, so please include those. And we go and update it, do another iteration, ask it, did I miss anything? And it will say, you're all good. So that's just an example of how you can utilize these mini agents within an organization. And again, we don't have to license every single user. We can put that on a pay-as-you-go basis for you. So that's basically the Copilot chat piece. Copilot Studio agents, like I said, these custom agents that we build out now, I am a big proponent of Copilot Studio. I think it's really, really cool. We can build some cool stuff. If you are very familiar with Power Automate, this will be your bread and butter. It really does use Power Automate a lot for the tasks, etc., to bring it in. It can also do things like I said, go to different large language models. It can integrate into multiple data sources and even use things like there's a thing called Model Context Protocol, which basically allows us to have a single piece of middleware and it connects to a whole bunch of our different systems. So this is a very, very cool product that we can utilize to build those custom ones. And again, it's on the tenant level. That's $360 per month, I believe. And the entire organization can use these agents. So it's not that expensive. So it really is something to consider from that. From a leadership perspective, we have the controls in place where we can actually see who's using what, which users are actually utilizing the agents, which users are using the technology, why aren't they adopting it, what are they using it for, etc. We cannot see people's prompts. So if anyone is worried, oh, well, I don't want to put something in there because the IT can see what I'm typing, we cannot see that. That is never available to us. We can only see usage from a time perspective, how many people are actually utilizing it, etc. Microsoft's got a great little aka.ms Copilot scenario library where they take you through a couple of scenarios within your organization. So if you are fairly new to this and unsure where or what your use case looks like, they've got a breakdown of how to use it in finance, how to use it in HR, IT operations, etc. And they take you through those use cases to find your scenario and function that you have. Like I said, with the adoption piece, it's really important that if any of us here are the IT managers or the leadership that's thinking of adopting agentic AI or any type of technology for that matter in your organization, that we monitor the uptake, we monitor, are we utilizing the tool to its benefit and for the user's benefit? And if not, why are we struggling with that gap? Why are people not utilizing it? And Microsoft provides these dashboards for us to be able to see exactly what that looks like. Now, with all of these agents, and I've mentioned that we have pay-as-you-go, we have a per-user license, but all of these things do cost money. So if we're not licensing on a per-user basis or per-seat basis, then often I'll have discussions with CIOs and CTOs around, well, how do I manage my cost? How do I know that this is not going to blow out and be a $200,000 project or tool that I put down there? So within that, we have these controls. So Copilot Studio Lite is what I just showed you now, where we build those mini agents. That can be on a pay-as-you-go basis, but we can set alerts and thresholds to that as well. So if we've got a budget of $1,000 a month for agent usage in chat, we can basically set that. It will not stop working. That is the one critical component. It will warn, and it will warn the people that are managing this that we are hitting that threshold, okay. Copilot Studio, on the other hand, we can buy as a prepaid bundle. All right, so you've got the two options there as well. So you can either go on a pay-as-you-go basis, very similar to the Copilot Studio chat one, or the Microsoft Copilot chat one, or we can buy a prepaid bundle, and that $360 per month gives you about 25,000 queries. Now, I'll take you through what a query looks like, but it's not 25,000 lines of chat. So it's not like, hi, oh, that's one gone. How are you? That's two gone. It's a little bit more complex than that, but you're going to get 25,000. And the nice thing about that approach is that if that 25,000 gets used, it stops working. It doesn't just decide it's going to start continuously charging you for that. So if you are concerned about the cost and blowing out a budget, then those prepaid bundles will be a good way to do that. Very similar with SharePoint. So when we publish, for some reason, Microsoft charges a little bit extra if we publish these agents in SharePoint. I have no idea why. So again, we can configure that on a pay-as-you-go basis if we really want to have the agents sitting in SharePoint. Very strange decision, but yeah, that's what they do. So before I jump into the costings, just a couple of decisions here. Does the agent need a custom AI model or orchestrator? So that was what I spoke about around the different large language models. Does it need a different orchestrator? If we're not accessing this agent internally in our Microsoft 365 window, then we're going to need a custom agent because we don't have any other way to do within Microsoft 365. Does the agent need advanced Teams integration? In other words, do we want to publish this agent to multiple channels? Do we want to publish this agent to allow users to install it or uninstall it? Then we have to see what that looks like. Or then does the agent need to send proactive or asynchronous messages? This is the autonomous piece. If we need that, then we're obviously going to build a custom agent. So this is basically a little decision tree. Do we buy the per user license or do we need those custom ones? But to be honest with you, if you're really looking at it from face value, you go to the user and say, cool, what do you need to use it for? The user will say, I need to build statement of works. I type statement of works every single day and it takes me 4 hours to build a statement of work out. You can say, cool, I'm going to give you a helping hand there and give you Microsoft 365 Copilot and let you build those documents with that, and then you can amend it accordingly. If that user comes to you and says, well, I need agents, like I said, to help me respond to RFP bids, then we would look at either chat or a custom Copilot for the users rather than that embedded piece. So Microsoft has a couple of their own agents. So you'd probably have seen researcher, analyst, sales agents, etc. There's a whole bunch that are coming as well that are around. There's a program called Foundry. So Microsoft has these, Frontier, sorry, not Foundry, Frontier. So Microsoft has these agents that they're pushing out for specific purposes that we can just adopt. So for example, researcher, that'll go and do deep research on a specific topic for you. Analyze if you're a sales agent within Dynamics 365 Sales. The employee self-service agent, skills agent. Skills agent is quite a cool one if you've got a large environment where you've got multiple skills sitting within the organization. So your IT admins can say, well, yeah, Craig's a technical person, but let's say, for example, I am good at fixing cars and I enjoy it and someone needs help. I can add that to my profile. So the company's going to go search for specific skills in the organization and basically it'll come up and say, okay, cool, Craig it does have mechanical skills within the vehicles, etc., which is very not true. Please don't call me for anything with the vehicles. But yeah, it's a very cool way of just, there's a lot of skills within an organization that people don't know that other people have. So just a use case there. So this is my start small, grow big approach. Basic starting first. I think if you haven't started this journey or if you're still tinkering with how do we use this, the basic task of querying and getting information back is key. If we can fix this piece with the knowledge, because the knowledge is the gold side of it, then we can move into the specialized and the more the automation side of things. So we really want to just break down that reverse pyramid and fix that part before going into the larger pieces, because these do take a lot more time. They can be a lot more complex, but this one here is pretty quick for us to get going. So on the cost piece, so if we have a Microsoft 365 Copilot license, then we don't get charged for that usage that we have, because we've already paid for it, all right? Like I said, if no license exists, we can put in metering, so that is the pay-as-you-go piece. And there is various knowledge pieces that we have to be aware of. Okay, so this is the graph that I came up with. This is the graph that will just show you that it's certainly not as simple as let me prompt you and you take one credit away. So let's get into this. A classic answer, a generative answer, agent action, tenant graph grounding, and then agent flows. So if we go and build out a custom agent today, we say, Alex, please license my tenant with 25,000 queries, $360 a month, we're going to build out this custom agent. Whoever's building out that custom agent needs to think about how we're going to present the knowledge back to these agents. So a classic answer would be an answer that is sitting in normal text. Okay, so we've got a Word document, for example, and we're going to put all our contact information in there. What our work numbers are, who to contact via email, etc. I'm going to put it in as a document. That'll be a classic answer. What we find is that'll be one message. So if someone goes to your agent and says, hey, company X, I'm looking to contact someone to purchase some products, it'll say, cool, you can contact this person at this number, and he has the email address. One message. If we put that same document into SharePoint and the agent reads it from SharePoint, it's now suddenly going to be a tenant grounded document and it's going to cost you 10 messages. Okay. So this is something we really need to consider when we're building this out. Is it's great and easy that we can put SharePoint as a knowledge source, but we really want to make sure that simple things that are being prompted on a daily basis, perhaps we've got a lot of traffic coming through to our website and people are going to utilize this chat agent, that we want to make sure that we have various ways of delivering that information to them, because we don't want to utilize all of our credits or quota because we have data sitting outside. Where this is great is where it's got a reason, where it's got to have a lot of updates and documents that we wanted to automatically reason over. That's a fantastic way to do it. If we wanted to do actions, so like I said, generate or make that purchase order, then it's going to cost us 2 messages. And then we've got flows as well, which is 13 per 100. So basically, if we're creating these Power Automate flows to go monitor a mailbox for a specific email, once that email comes in, remove the attachment, put the attachment into SharePoint. SharePoint's then going to grab that and do something with that document. Those are all the flows that we can build into these agents, but that's 13 per 100 actions. So it's not too expensive because 100 actions per flow is quite a lot of actions. But where people generally get tricked up is a classic answer versus a tenant grounded one. So all those basics, just put it in as an answer, a static answer. It's not going to change, so we don't need to ground it. We don't need to have that knowledge settings elsewhere. When we have a Microsoft 365 license user, so let's say I build that custom agent and I put it to the entire company. But we've got one user who creates those statement of works that I mentioned. They're not going to get double charged, okay? Because they're already paying that $580 odd per year for that license, they've pretty much paid for that usage already. So there's going to be no charges for them. The only charge that they would have with interacting with that agent would be the flows that happen. And that's because we're using the Power Automate flows that are built in the premium connectors. So they get charged for that only. So you don't have to worry about paying for a user and then also getting double charged for that. Any questions on the cost? Sure.
Like how much is it for like 10 messages, I guess?
Yeah, so it's a great question. So basically what happens is it breaks it out into tokens. So you're basically going to ask it a question, can you please check my stock levels, for example? All right. So that stock level is going to trigger the agent action. Okay, so that's going to go 5 messages out of your 25,000 query pack, go and check it and bring that stock back. It's going to say, cool, you've got 20 bags left. If you ask, okay, great, can you please order again? It's going to go and get that. And then you say, for example, okay, well, what does our total inventory look like? Now, that total inventory is sitting in our CRM or in a SharePoint library, whatever it may be. then it will go and get that and bring that out, and that'll cost you 10 messages. So that interaction there is 20 messages out of your 25,000 query pack. So that's pretty much how it's going to work. And this is, well, when we design this, we can set things like topics. So I'll show you quickly where it is, just so it makes more sense. Oops. So if you have a look over here within the agents, we can basically, let's bring this one up here. So we can create topics, all right? So these topics can be any topic that you want to add. So if you wanted to create a topic for that contact information I spoke about, if someone asks a message, what is the contact details, instead of us leaving it blank over here, we would actually just send a message and in plain text, put in what those details are. That would not cost you, that would cost you that one message only, all right? If we left this trigger or this topic open and it could only find the data in SharePoint, that's where it will cost us 10 messages. So we really want to try and just define those simple ones that we know are static answers, they're never going to change, define those, and then leave the rest to generative answers, because that's how I can go and get the grounded data. So yeah, to answer your question, how many? It all depends on what you're going to be interacting with and where it's going to get the data from. Okay.
Like, you get 25,000
Yeah.
for the monthly.
Yes.
How much would it be for just pay as you go? Is that different rates or?
It's a great question. Yes, it is different rates. So what we suggest is if you're going to go on the pay-as-you-go piece, all right, you're going to get to about 15,000 queries that have gone through, then it's going to be cheaper to buy the query packs pre-built. Okay. So what a lot of companies do is they'll say, okay, cool, we want to test this out. We don't really want to commit to the 360 per month until we figure out what our use case is. And we might just be using $10 a month because that's what we're going to utilize it as our first phase. So put the pay-as-you-go piece in, build it out, test it, etc., pay the couple of dollars every month for that, and then start utilizing it, go live with your first version, and then as soon as you hit that 15,000 queries within the month, then just switch it over to a capacity plan where you've got those 25,000 queries. When you do run out, or if you do run out of 25,000 queries, we can just stack another one on top of that. All right, so instead of the 360 a month, it'll now be what, 720 a month, because you've stacked another one, and now you've got 50,000 queries within your organization. Okay, so you can stack them on top of each other. All right, so 15,000 roughly is the benchmark for pay-as-you-go, because pay-as-you-go is a little bit more expensive than the cost I just showed you. But if you hit 15,000, then move it to the next one. Any other questions on this can be a little confusing, so, but I think the main thing is really just understanding that, where you're going to get the answers from. Because we all want to get the best return on investment for the stuff. We don't just want to be paying. So just spending a day or two figuring out how we're going to answer the certain questions. And the nice thing about this is we can actually see how many queries are being generated from a graph, from an agent action, and we can see what those queries were on the custom agents. Okay, so it's pretty cool. Lastly, from my side, really, is around the business units. So when we have the various agents within our organization, we can choose to publish these into the store itself. So instead of using this slide, let me show you exactly what it looks like. So when you build that custom agent, you can then publish it into your store. Okay, so you'll see over here, built by your org, and the agents will be sitting over here that are built by your organization. All right, so the users can then come in and add these. You can either set it as they have to have it, so in other words, it installs automatically for them, or the users can come in here and actually add it and have a look and see if they want to utilize it. So I built a Word template document, so this one basically just does builds out some Word stuff from using a specific template. And there's that inventory monitor piece that are built out as well. So when we build those custom agents out, we can decide how we want the users to be able to add them to their own environments, etc. So that's where it will be there. So just to wrap up from our side, it really is I like to call it a three-product approach. Personally, there's only two that are really valuable to organizations. That embedded piece, do we need that document creation, that PowerPoint presentation creation, that Outlook email generation? If that's very important to the end user, then Microsoft 365 Copilot and that embeddedness piece is the way to go. If we're looking at more creating these agents for the entire organization to use, Copilot Studio is going to be your best friend there. Best return on investment, best way to do economies of scale across your organization. And like I said, you can choose the large language model then what tasks you want it to do. So I've built a couple where we've pushed it out into Azure for document intelligence. So we had a project the other day where an agricultural firm came to us and said, well, we've got historic documents of the last 80 years, and a lot of them are handwritten documents. So what we built is we built an agent that does OCR, so basically it does optical character recognition. So it picked up all of the handwriting and put that into a digital format for us. It also picked up all the diagrams, exported those and put those into a certain database for us. And then we put an agent on top of that data. So it was a two-phase approach, get into digital format, and then put the agent so that people can ask questions based on it. And it worked really, really well. They're super happy with that approach. They can ask the questions around, I don't know, in 1960, what was the soil levels like? Because they've got that data, but it's all handwritten. And now they've got agents over that because they can utilize that and ask it questions. So there's many, many use cases, but I do understand that there's also, it's like, how long is a piece of string? Where do I utilize this? How do I utilize this? And often we'll sit in a meeting and company will be like, cool, so tell me how I can use it. I'm like, I don't really know your business, but this is how I've used it. And just try and get those creative thoughts flowing. But yeah, I think once you've got a concrete use case, then hopefully from what you've learned today, you can actually apply which Copilot you need to apply to that use case. So any other questions before I hand over to Liam? Is just going to give you a bit of updates on the Microsoft world within the licensing side of things. Any last questions from anyone? If there are anything afterwards, please feel free. I'll be hanging around. You're welcome to come have a chat with me. If you've got some use cases you want to bounce off me, please just let me know. But thank you very much again for attending. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Hi, guys. My name's Liam. So I've been looking after the sort of Microsoft CSP cloud licensing portfolio with Ingram. We're sort of the extended arm, like Alex said, of PBTech. So I kind of just wanted to go through a couple of updates and I guess more importantly, need to knows with Microsoft and what's sort of happening in the next sort of 6 months. I mean, as always, the Microsoft cloud train moves super quick. We get these updates really regularly. Every couple of days, I'm sort of looking at what's come out in our partner center announcements to work out what's new and more importantly, how it's going to sort of affect PBTech's customers and end customers like yourself, more importantly. So that's kind of where my job sits. Like as Craig said, feel free to ask me any questions as we go. If there's anything around licensing piece, that is sort of my bread and butter. For a lot of you, it's probably the place you try to avoid the most, and because it's not the most glamorous topic, I'm aware of that, but it is really important to know some of these features and changes. So today, I'm just going to go through some of the enterprise agreement changes. Some of you might already be on EAs or might have been in the past or might still be looking at them. I'm not sure what's in this room here around EAs, but definitely worthwhile covering because there's been some huge changes end of last year, and I will go through some of that to start off with. I'm going to go through some of the new, I guess, products, more importantly for the SMB stack, so anyone sort of under that 300 seat mark. which again does incorporate a lot of New Zealand. And there's some really cool new products they've released there for SMB that kind of relate to what Craig spoke about, especially with first-party Copilots, bundles, and even the Defender and Purview suites, which have sort of come out for the SMB side now, which was kind of traditionally offered for enterprise customers. I'm going to cover quickly the grace period. Some of you might not even be aware of this, but this was, there's some changes around how that works when a subscription auto renew gets turned off. So big changes coming there in a couple of months. I'm just going to go through some of the promos that Microsoft have at the moment. So there's a way to save quite a bit of money and lock in some promos for, between 1 to 3 years, which is pretty cool. So try save a bit of money again. That's a big part of obviously what I guess organizations are doing at the moment. And I'll go through some new capabilities / some of the price increase stuff which got announced for middle of this year as well. So we'll go through that. I'll save the worst for last. Okay, cool. So I'll just start off with enterprise agreements. For those of you who don't know what an enterprise agreement is, or an EA as we call it, essentially Microsoft have offered EAs across the worldwide, which basically allow customers, traditionally it was over sort of 350 seats, to take advantage of a slightly different way you license. You do a true up, true down every year. You sign up for 3 to 5 years and you commit to certain products for that time. And again, you can adjust once a year as you go down there. Now, traditionally that gave some okay discounts for the smaller side. For the larger agreements, they were very large. Some of you may be familiar with that. But I just kind of want to show where we're sort of moving today and what Microsoft are really pushing. So traditionally we had a lot of different programs down there, everything from EA, Open Value, some of you might remember, MPSA, CSP with under Legacy, the Legacy structure, and even obviously Web Direct as well, just buying on a credit card. Nowadays, things have changed quite a lot, and there's kind of 3 what I would class as main purchase channels, which is around CSP. Most of you will be already taking advantage of CSP program, and licensing via that kind of offers, I guess, the most flexibility, as well as obviously partners to deliver products and great pricing like PBTech do. You can still buy online at full RRP, obviously through credit card, through your admin center, as many of you are probably aware of. And then there's a new change which has basically happened where enterprise agreements have kind of been, I guess, well, they are being end-of-lifed and just being moved into what we call MCA-E. MCA is the Microsoft Customer Agreement. You sign that and you are under that agreement as part of CSP. They've basically done that as an enterprise version of that under enterprise agreements. There's also some really big changes when it comes to, I guess, the pricing side of it too, which I'll cover off. But basically what they've announced as of 1st of this year is the new flexible MCA-E, I guess, structure. It means you have an option to sort of true up and true down more frequently. But I think the biggest problem is smaller and mid-sized customers are affected the most. So we're seeing a huge portion of this being in New Zealand, I suppose, because a lot of our companies are, I guess, on the smaller side of enterprise that are in that, rather than in the US and other larger markets. And it's left a lot of customers, I guess, in the lurch for things like pricing, but also being moved over to CSP without a lot of guidance from Microsoft or their licensing service providers. In New Zealand, we were the only country in the world that did enterprise agreements via an LSP, so through a partner, rather than direct from Microsoft. So some of you might have been through that before with some previous providers. There's about 5 in New Zealand without going and naming names. But I think what we're seeing anyway is a big shift from enterprise agreements for that under sort of 1,000 seats or around that, and moving into CSP and using resellers and partners like under CSP would traditionally has and would. So there's a couple other key wee details around what we're seeing and how that's being adopted. So the elimination of those volume discounts, unless you're sort of over that 1,000 seat mark, that, I mean, for many of you will be who have been on an EA is probably enough to go, we need to assess other options. The rise of CSP has obviously changed in the last few years. We went from a really flexible cancel any time type model, as some of you might remember, to what we call NCE, New Commerce Experience now. You're locked in for a duration, whether that's a 1 month, 1 year, or up to 3 years. But we really need to make sure that we're using that correctly, but it does create more flexible, scalable, and I guess more options around pricing as well for that. And yeah, as you're seeing, the agreement value, I mean, we say they've put down 2,400, but realistically in the New Zealand market, it's sort of, to even get a discount versus CSP in that comparison, you're 1,000 seats plus to even get looked at by Microsoft, which is kind of surprising, but this is the way they're pushing, and I guess they also want customers to work through the channel business, being your service providers and licensing providers. So I think it's really important to just basically go through and assess size of organization, licensing requirements. Are you under 300 SMB customer, so you may be taking advantage of like the business stack products, or are you looking at going to enterprise licensing, but maybe doing it through through a licensing provider like PBTech rather than as an enterprise agreement. So some big changes around that, and I think it's going to create and consolidate a lot of the market around enterprise agreements in New Zealand, because there's a huge amount around that 350 to 500 user mark that there's not really any point being on an EA, and you can get better service, more importantly as well, through a partner like PB instead of going and going through like an EA provider that usually just is transactional with you and not really adding that extra value. So it's important you're also getting value on top of your purchasing of your licensing as well. It's not just a transactional space. So that's a bit on the enterprise agreement space. I wanted to go into some of the Copilot for Business and SMB bundles right off the bat. So some of you, or many of you, will be aware of what we call M365 Copilot, and I'm acutely aware that there's like 80 different Copilots or more now, and it's really confusing with the names. Microsoft hasn't done any favors around that. So M365 Copilot simply is referring to embedded Copilot in your productivity apps, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, all that you're probably familiar with. Some of you would have used it, some of you may not. They've made an SMB version for those customers using Business Basic, Standard, or Premium as your base license. So it's about $10 to $15 per user per month cheaper than M365 Copilot. And more importantly, you can buy bundles with that as well. So I've just really quickly put the 3 options under the bundles there, and the standalone, these are just monthly paid annual commit NZD pricing. So you can buy Business Basic and Copilot for Business, Business Standard, Business Premium with that as well, bundled up. Obviously, there's some cost savings there. And obviously, if you choose to buy it standalone like you would have with the previous M365 Copilot, you can already see, I think M365 Copilot's around $50, $55 per user per month. Some big savings even just moving over to Copilot for Business. At this stage, it's the same functionality. I am kind of hesitant to go, oh yeah, that's going to continue, because I do think there might be some wee changes around enterprise features, but at this stage, the product is the same. So we will see how that plays out, but that's been a big hit already, and I guess a lot of customers are moving from M365 Copilot to this if you're on those SMB SKUs. It just makes more sense, more cost savings, all of that. So anybody under 300 seats, please look at these. It's a great way to license. Okay, so grace period and extended service terms. I'm not sure how many have taken advantage of grace period before. I guess I'll just explain what is currently available in the market with grace period. So when you have a license at the moment that you turn auto renew off on it, it expires, say today. From today, you'll have 30 days from Microsoft free of charge, and that is essentially you have no loss of service, and you can still use all your products. You're not going to get blocked from viewing anything, editing, whatever it might be. End of the 30-day grace period comes up, then obviously you start losing service to things. You can still access your documents, but you won't be able to like edit, things like that, as you're probably aware of. So this is changing a little bit and it just got pushed out like a week ago. So as I was saying, these updates come thick and fast and often get pushed out, delayed, all of that. And this has changed now to May 4th. It was going to be April 1st. So fortunately, we've got another month of this, but they've pushed over to what they call EST, or extended service terms. So you basically have 3 clear options when you have a license coming up for renewal or with auto renew turned off. So you'll be able to either renew the subscription as per normal, just renews, rolls over, continues billing. You can choose to cancel at the renewal date. That will be immediate loss of service, just be aware, so that grace period's gone. Or you move into what is called the EST timeframe, and that is a daily calculated rate, which I believe is 5% higher than what you would have been paying on the annual monthly, or the monthly committed, monthly paid option, and you'll be paying that on a daily rate. Again, it's calculated at, I think it's 1 p.m. NZ time is the switch over every day. So just be aware of that. If grace period was something that you use, and I'm aware many organizations did use this feature, which is, again, that was part of what Microsoft offers, part of CSP, that will be going away and moving to this new service feature. So just be aware of that, because there are customers that were taking advantage of this to essentially gain a free month, I suppose, if you want to word it that way. Okay, cool. Some more, I guess, glamorous stuff, should I say, as far as licensing goes. Current promotions that Microsoft are running. Now, they update this once a month into a document that pretty much all of you will be able to access as well. I just wanted to go through some of the key ones based on kind of what we've spoke about. So anybody that's using E3 and E5 at the moment, they tend to prioritize incentivizing and promoting these SKUs and offering percentage off for these, because obviously Microsoft are a big push into their premium suite. So at the moment, 10% off E3, E5 if you're looking at a 3-year term. So for people that were on enterprise agreements, you locked in for 3 years, that's a good way to also lock in a pricing for 3 years without getting hit by any price increases. One thing we just got to be careful of, both the E3 and E5, you can't have held that licensing in the tenant previously. So that's one stipulation that a lot of customers do get caught up and hung up on. So just be aware of that. If you have any queries around how to validate that, I can validate that through Alex if you ask me. So happy to do that. Some of them do have minimum order quantities, like 100 for the E3, E5 3-year. Copilot at the moment for M365, so that's for your enterprise customers, 15% off, but again, you can't have held that before. There is a potential for 20% off even, if that's the way you wanted to go. We do have to often request that from Microsoft for over 100 seats, but we've had a couple been successful already on that if you're looking at doing an organization-wide rollout. And then on the SMB side, which was around the bundles I presented, those ones are probably more appealing at this stage. So we've got Copilot for Business, as I said, 15% off, and there's no minimum order quantity with that one, and that can be up to a year with 15% off, so that's pretty attractive. 2 of the bundles, Business Standard and Premium with Copilot, 35% off Standard and Copilot, 25% off Business Premium and Copilot, and that is 10 minimum seats, so just be aware of that minimum quantity. And for any of you that are looking at going into the Purview side of tools, there's 50% off if you've got Business Premium as well, or Copilot in your tenant as well. So like I say, there's actually more promos than that. I just wanted to throw the key ones up. There's a few around Business Central and stuff. If you're in the Dynamics space, just like I say, feel free to come by and chat with me if you want to know more about that. But that's, like I say, these promos are very much trying to obviously accelerate that adoption of Business Premium and Copilot bundles. So I think we're seeing a huge influx of that. And we can do things like upgrade your existing Business Premiums to Copilot for Business and bundle. So there's a lot of ways we can do this, which has been super successful. So yeah, nice to see Microsoft putting some money back into your pockets as I go into taking more from your pockets. So yeah, we do have a price increase coming up again, and it's been kind of ironic because I started this role just over 5 years ago, and I remember sort of going through just post-COVID going, oh, we haven't, when was the last price increase? Sort of asking some of my colleagues in Microsoft, and we hadn't seen one for, I don't even know, 3 to 5 years before I started. And ever since I started, it feels like we've had one almost every year, and you probably all feel kind of the same. So yeah, this is another one that's coming in at July 1st. Now, just bear in mind, this is USD pricing here, so please just take this with a grain of salt. We don't get the NZD pricing until the end of June, which is a bit of a pain if I'm honest, but it's the way that sort of Microsoft do their price matrices for each country outside of the US. We can indicatively look at it as a percentage and sort of work out where it's going to be. So again, happy to chat about that if you like. And remember that it's only at your renewal date. So if you're renewing in December, you've got an annual commit paid monthly and it renews in December this year, you're not going to be affected until your renewal in December. It's not going to hit you from July 1st onwards. It's at renewal date. I think the only SKU there we're not seeing, which is ironic that Microsoft included it, is Business Premium. So anybody not on Business Premium, we're not getting an increase, so woohoo, that's nice. But a lot of the other products, we are getting small increases. So everything through Business Basic Standard, and then obviously the Office 365 suite, E1, E3, and then again, E3, E5, F1, F3. Not the biggest increases I've seen Microsoft do, if I'm honest, over the last 5 years, but still there, still significant, and definitely worthwhile just making sure for your next year's FY's budget that you are factoring this in for your renewal dates as well. Because these are the most commonly used products, right? So this isn't across any of the other product suite, so anybody using, Visio and all that kind of stuff, or individual add-ons, they're not affected, but bear in mind that, of course, these are the products all being affected. So pretty important to note that, so please just bear that in mind. I didn't have anything more to show you guys today, just kind of the intricacies of what we've seen in the last probably 2 to 3 months since we sort of came back from Christmas break. But yeah, was there any questions on any of this, any general licensing stuff? Feel free to come chat with me at the end if you need. But yeah, appreciate everybody for attending, and that's all from me today, so thank you. Cool.